So Rock Hudson, all that heaven allowed. It's kind of like a heartfelt look back on the life of actor Rock Hudson, an actor who was very prolific, but had to be a closeted homosexual just because he feared that, nobody would accept it, and that if it was revealed, that he'd be torn to shreds. And I feel like a documentary like this is pretty important for coming at his career from this angle, because it lets you get to understand a little bit more about the actor, not just in his private life, which is actually pretty sincere and charming, because like all the other guys who kind of like knew Rock both on like a friendly level and kind of like on a sexual level, uh, reveal a lot in this film that kind of like paint him as like a more whole person who didn't, behind closed doors, like he felt like he could be more of himself as opposed to, just acting 24/7 and trying to like, keep all the, his all his homosexuality out of the tabloids. Because the one thing, like, because a lot of people, I feel like if they heard the news that Rock Hudson was closeted gay, the first thing they would say was like, well, why didn't he come out? Like, if they don't have any cultural context. And I feel like this documentary does a decent job painting the era and the concerns that Rock had for that. Which is wonderfully told by just, this is one of those documentaries where it relies entirely on, interviews, both video and audio, of other actors, kind of like painting the complete picture here about why Rock felt this way and why he had to cover this up. Because, yeah, like the public perception a lot of people had with Rock Hudson was that, he's this big, heterosexual guy who had roles where, he was seducing women, and, a lot of women love that, and like they try to keep that public perception up, especially including having a marriage in which it's a little bit questionable, how much like they knew, how much she knew in terms of like if Rock was gay and that this was going to be a sham marriage, just cover it up. And the thing is, Rock actually had really good reason to cover this up, especially because like one of the aspects that they didn't cover in the film is that Rock Hudson died of AIDS. And of course, when they were going to reveal that he had AIDS, of course it was going to come out that he was homosexual. And one of the things that they don't address in the film, but I feel like should be stressed, is that when this was revealed, right-wing radio host Rush Limbaugh, who talked a lot about AIDS on the radio at that time, after Rock Hudson's death, referred to AIDS as Rock Hudson's disease, and just mocked the actor and everyone else who was dying of AIDS at the time, like literally saying that gay people deserve this. So there was a lot of like, Rock was right. He was terrified to reveal this because like, really horrible people like Rush Limbaugh would harp on this and would use it against it, which, was just like the most horrible thing. So there's a mixture of both like anger and and sincerity and poignancy that comes about in this documentary where you feel for Rock. It's not like there's not like a whole lot of like revealing archival footage here. Like there's some behind the scenes photos that they reveal that fluctuate between being like cute and concerning, that are pretty interesting, but it's mostly just like relying on like audio and interviews and footage from the era, and a lot of clips from Rock's other films that kind of like paint like the complete picture of the man. But on that level, for that type of film, I do love how it proceeds in a linear fashion, and like how it doesn't shy away from addressing how Rock felt towards the end of his career, especially when like he was still acting, and so many people were just horrified about what was going on with the AIDS epidemic, that Rock just didn't feel like himself. Like even before he was like like AIDS was like further crippling him, just having like that anxiety hang over him, and the fact that other actors felt that similar level of anxiety, like especially for when they were working with him on projects, and some of the crew were just, because there was, hysteria around how AIDS is spread, they were just like, they didn't want to be around him. They were horrified of this stuff. So it's it's a good reminder about, like how far we've come and how we need to like keep going forward with this, so that someone like Hudson doesn't feel like they need to be in the shadows. Like nowadays, yeah, like it's easier for actors to come out as gay because they're more accepting of it, and like there aren't a lot of like crappy, like tabloids that would harp on this and ruin this career if they came out as gay. Like there's still right-wing weirdos, like, like in the in the wake of like Rush Limbaugh, there have been really other terrible people who would harp on this, but honestly, they're just garbage people at this point that nobody should really be taking seriously, and barely anyone does outside of that. One would hope. Like I said, I want to be cautious about that because, like, yeah, we've come a long ways, but we need to keep going further because a talent like Rock Hudson, it felt like he should have been with us a lot longer. It felt like there was a lot more projects that he could have brought about, and even like the film goes into his diaries and addresses how like he feels about his work and that he might have like suffered with like the quality, like especially like I believe he was on like some soap operas, not quite soap operas, but kind of like, like serial dramas on television in the 80s, and you could tell like the way that he describes himself, like he wasn't happy with what he was doing. He didn't like the way that that his work was proceeding on screen, and you can kind of like feel like the pressures and just like, the anxiety that comes with trying to like hide the secret and, not feeling like yourself. So yeah, like who knows if maybe if he could have been more open, didn't have to hide so much behind closed doors, we might have still had Rock. It's like we should have had him for more years. It would have been great to see him in just like a few more film roles where like he didn't really feel bad about like the work that he was doing. So yeah, it's like, especially like if you haven't seen a lot of Rock Hudson films, I've seen like a handful. It was interesting to get this perspective out. Like I knew about like, how he died of AIDS and how he was a closeted homosexual and how like Rush Limbaugh was like, shitting all over him. But yeah, like getting more of like the complete picture here, especially from those who knew him best, it paints a very poignant picture of this actor that is definitely worth watching.